Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here with my week of reading wrap-up. This is where I talk about the books that I read this week, what I'm currently reading, and then potentially could read next week based on my mood. So, had a really mixed reading week. I did not finish a lot of things, still on my net galley busting ways that I started last month. And I'm incredibly proud to say that I've gone from like 36% where I've actually responded and reviewed up to 56%. So I feel like I'm trending in the right direction, but I still have a long way to go. I was delayed a little bit this week because, like all of America, I got sucked into Hemingway fever, which was shocking because I'm not someone who finds him particularly interesting. Because of the hyper masculinity, because of the bravado and the hunting and the bullfighting, as I said, hyper masculine energy. But I want to say that I think the documentary did a magnificent job at dealing head on with the contradictions within his character, the things that he did that were really horrible. But at the same time, talking about his skill as a technical writer and his work ethic when he wasn't drinking, and the types of things that he was drawn to. They didn't gloss over anything. There wasn't this hazy, soft lighting around some of his more egregious actions. And I was really interested in how they talked about him, as well as some of the things that they uncovered, including possibly some gender fluidity that he had in himself, as well as the fact that he had a transgender child. I mean, interesting work. So I highly recommend it. I think it's a phenomenal series, but it's a long series, and so it took up like 3 different nights of watching nothing but that. And as you know, that I usually don't watch television. My time is usually devoted to reading, so it suffered because of it. But I don't regret watching the Hemingway documentary, and I'll put a link below in case you are able to watch it or curious. So let's talk about what I did read. So I completed 2 NetGalley books this week. The first was Fierce Poise, Helen Frankenthaler, and 1950s New York. And this is by Alexander Nemerov. If you remember, last year, I read a book that just blew my mind. It was Ninth Street Women, and it was a series of women who were in the abstract expressionist movement at the time, and Helen Frankenthaler was one of them. And it was by Mary Gabriel. I'll put a link to it below. And just magnificent. The context setting of the milieu in which these women were working, their inner relationships, because it was a small community, and their contribution and standing firm as artists on their own merit, regardless of their relationships, regardless of their sexual adventures, regardless of any of that. They were artists first. So because of that book, I was teed up to really want to go a little deeper in Helen Frankenthaler's work. This book is a puzzle. It was okay, but I didn't love it. I think if you are interested in this subject, I would pick the Mary Gabriel book over this one. So this one, he's choosing a span of just the most prolific in her life, which is the 1950s. So we have a tightened focus here. But there were a lot of times when I questioned some of his points of view and some of the things he chose to include in the conversation. An example is after a breakup, he included a letter that a lover wrote where he denoted and talked disparagingly about her body and their sex life, and why is that in there? I also there was also a tone of competition and like almost cattiness about some of the other women artists that didn't exist in Mary's book. I don't know which is right, but I do know that there were a lot of group exhibitions. There were a lot of cross-pollination. And so I am hesitant to believe the narrative that she was uh, uh, catty about some of these other women, as opposed to being inspired. And it could be a combination, but the tone just felt uh, it didn't resonate and it didn't feel good, and I didn't like it as much. Now he's a good writer. There are interesting things here, but again, for my money, I would veer in a different direction. I would veer into Next Street Women, if you are so inclined. So that was Fierce Poise. So I completed that, and then I had a complete disaster. Like, oh my god, what the hell did I just read? I thought this was going to be light and fun and a completely different twist on the types of things that I had been reading, which tend to be a little heavy, a little introspective, highly literary. This was called The Last Laugh by Lynn Freed. I gave it 1 star. I'm going to come out the gate saying this book was horrible. It was about some older women, 3 older women who make the decision that they're going to move to Greece for a year. They're all independent. They have money. They're all independent, but they're going to live together in Greece and fulfill this dream that they have, because they don't have to worry about children. They can cut these ties and just go where they want to go, which sounds phenomenal, right? These women are horrible, horrible. And I don't mind mean, difficult people. In fact, that's one of my jams. I love complex women. I love difficult women. I don't love self-centered narcissism that is unexamined and that the author doesn't recognize. So it's one thing if the author sees and knows what they're painting. It's another thing if I don't think the author realizes that this person is bad and horrible, right? And that was the case here. There's a big, long portion in kind of near the beginning of the book where one of the women is lobbying the other 2 to bring her maid. And the whole conversation is about the fact that, and her name is Bess. Bess is the one who wants to bring her maid, Gladys. And the whole conversation is because Bess and Ruth, who is our narrator, Ruth they're stepsisters, and they grew up in South Africa. And Gladys has always been with them. She's always been with them, and she is from Soweto. And so why wouldn't she want to come with them? And we can't possibly get along without her. What? Then there was all these conversations of, well, what, the people in this Greek island are going to think she's stealing everything, jumping to these really racist conclusions and not questioning and not thinking about, not fully forming Gladys as a character. Cringe. There were so many cringeworthy moments in this. And it started with just the 3 of them, and then they started bickering and challenging each other, and you get the kind of the vacation gone wrong direction. But then they started adding like a ton of characters in, so it seemed like every single one of them had a family member come visit or somebody out of their past show up. The character just became like a horde. It was hard to keep them apart. Everyone was horrible. Everyone was horrible. There was homophobia. There was snipes at each other. There was a woman who was psychotic. This went off the rails. And I don't know if this author thought they were writing a farce. If there didn't seem to be that remove that you would expect for someone who's making fun of, as opposed to imagining something going wrong in their own life, if that makes any sense. So this was horrible. This was, I gave it a 1, and I probably should have just ranked it 0. It was bad. I would advise maybe not reading this. Do what you're going to do. Just know that this was bad. Then let's move to something that wasn't bad, but I couldn't do it. And I felt so horrible. So I did my Aussie April picks, my piles of possibilities, and this book was on it. And I was so excited because I was reading it with Natalie of A Curious Reader. And this is The Enlightenment of the Greengage Tree by Shokoofeh Azar. One of my ticks or one of my triggers is state-sponsored violence and torture. I'm not talking war. I mean specifically one individual who gets sucked into the prison system and is tortured and for political reasons. This prompted a lot of conversation and some reflection because I'm reading 2 books that deal with this right now. I'm reading this fiction book, or was reading this fiction book. I had to put it down. And then I'm also reading this nonfiction book. This is Hisham Matar's The Return, Father, Sons, and the Land in Between. I mentioned that this is the story of Hisham Matar, whose family returned to Libya many years after the Gaddafi regime had been dismantled, and it was safe to do so, with his father, his brother, and his wife. Now, their father had been taken and is presumed to be dead, killed in prison, taken, literally snatched in the middle of the night and kidnapped and taken to a political prison and tortured. So why can't I read this, but I can read this? I'll be very slowly. And in talking with Natalie and talking with a few other people, there is something in the immediacy that fiction puts in your head, right? You're imagining yourself in the moment. Your point of view is the person who is being tortured or the torturer. And that triggers me. I get visceral reactions. I have problems reading that. Where and it's because the remove is not there. It's too intimate to elicit emotion. It's set up to provoke a response and a feeling and a perspective. Whereas with a nonfiction book, there's a remove, there's a contextualization, and the reporting gives this distance that I need in order to read this type of thing. So unfortunately, I had to beg off my reading of this. It was the other, and it wasn't just that there was one scene. The way that time was moving in this book indicated that this was going to loop back, that it was going to be something that we return back to over and over again. And I didn't think I could do it. So thank you, Natalie, for asking me to read this with you, and then more so for letting me beg off. So I appreciate your flexibility with that. Now let's get to what I'm currently reading. So I mentioned I'm reading this. I'm going to try to finish it this week. I read this very slowly for the reasons mentioned before. It's very emotional. It's hard to read, but that remove allows me to continue on with it. And his writing is magnificent. And it's poignant. You know, we're learning things as he's learning things about his father's imprisonment from people who were there with him. And he's meeting his family, his extended family, who were also taken, and learning about their experience. And in doing that, he's getting closer to his dead father and his dead father's story, which is something that had obsessed him for many, many years. So we'll continue with this. Also, continuing with my in real life book club, The Shadow King, Maaza Mengiste. This is really interesting. I mentioned before that I'm interested in this time period in this place. This is Ethiopia in the 1940s. So there's the political overlay of Haile Selassie as the emperor and decisions that he's making to to make sure that when he has to go ask for help from the international community, it's very clear that they were not the aggressors. Now, Ethiopia is one of the only places that was not colonialized in Africa. And so, we already have that in our head. So how did they fight this off? How did they prevent this? Fascinating time. The character, we have a young girl who's observing. She's willful, and we have the wife of this man who's leading the charge, and she is becoming very interesting. We're getting both of their backstories, and so we're getting a sense of who these women played a very, very strong role in the fighting. So curious as to where we're going to go with this. We're going to try to finish this in about 2 weeks. Then I've decided I'm going to do a vlog of reading this. So I'm only going to give you little bits here, and instead watch for a vlog after I get done with this. This is my Virginia Woolf fiction project that I'm doing with Elizabeth of Bookish North. Oh, we just are having so much fun with this. We find that a check-in leads to further conversations. We probably have like 2 or 3 conversations after every single check-in, because what she's saying is so brilliant and is resonating, and she picks up different things that I don't even see. And then I want to explore that a little more. So it's just, it's like what best book buddy reads do, is they kind of continue on. Oh, and speaking of that, I'm in the process of finishing up a blog post about buddy reads and how to do a buddy read and how to think about a buddy read and my preferences for buddy reads. My way is not the right way. It's just what I have learned and how I interact best in a buddy read. So I'm going to put a link. I'll put a link to that when I finish with it. But it's at my blog, which is at hardcoverhearts.com. Okay, so this is her first fiction, and it is blowing us away. And most importantly, we're seeing glimmers of things that she ends up fleshing out and developing more later on in her career, which is just a delight. It feels like these Easter eggs that she didn't even know she was leaving behind as a trail for us. Magnificent, and I'm so happy that Elizabeth and I will be doing this project for the rest of the year. So I hopefully, if it goes well, I'll plan to do a vlog for each one and wrap it up at the end. Okay, so that's what I am. Oh, I'm also reading another NetGalley. This is Bedlam Stacks by Natasha Pulley. Now, I read the Watchmaker of Filigree Street by the same author. And I was very frustrated because it was so close to being great, but the magic system that she wrote about didn't make sense to me. It was kind of like a Victorian era novel. There were interesting characters, interesting bits, but I just couldn't get my arms around how the magic system worked. And I just kept having to just kind of let go of my questions and just kind of go with it. But after a certain point, it felt like that I was onto something, that it wasn't adding up. So, but I had this in NetGalley, so I was like, okay, let me give her another try. This is also one where I'm starting to get some cringy. This is also one where I'm starting to get a little cringy, spidey sense. I don't know, so if you watch my channel, you know that I have problems with romanticizing colonialism, especially in modern day. So if you watch my channel, you know that I have a problem with romanticizing colonialism. It's one thing if it was done in Victorian age, it was still wrong, absolutely still wrong. Still racist, still classist and elitist, and assuming Western elitism. But at least that was the prevailing thinking at the time. And so it would have been unusual to find someone who questioned that. But now, if you're writing now, and you're writing about that time, and you're choosing to use language like a describing of an Asian man as Oriental, knowing what we know now, and I I'm side-eyeing. I'm looking at you. Uh, all of a sudden, you're suspect. And so now I'm wondering, do you believe these things? And so this is the second book you're choosing to write in kind of faux Victorian fantasy terms as a means to use these kinds of stereotypes that you would never be able to talk about if it weren't set in those eras. And I just my hackles are up. I'm continuing on because I think it's fair that I read it for NetGalley. I probably would DNF it if I was just reading it for myself. So if you've read that, let me know. Does it get better? Does it get worse? So that is what I'm currently reading. I need to, next week, I'm going to get started with Leo of A Little Book Life. We're going to read our 11th book, A Closed Eye by Anita Brookner. So very excited to do this with him. And I've heard this is really good, but Brief Lives was exceptional. So I have high expectations. So that's it. I would love to know, have you read any of these? What are your thoughts about them? Are you interested in Helen Frankenthaler? Have you read The Last Laugh? And then what are your thoughts about triggers? Are there things that trigger you, but you can read it if it's nonfiction, but you can't read it if it's fiction? I'm super curious. I would love to know that. And then we are so close to ending this pandemic. I see so many people popping up with their vaccine cards. I'm so happy for you all. I'm so absolutely delighted. I feel like there's light at the end of this horrible dark tunnel. Please, let's finish strong. When you're outside, when you're with other people, maintain safe social distance still. Wear your masks. Please wash your hands and do not touch your face. And I am looking forward to not having to say that in every one of my week of reading reviews. I can tell I'm already going to have to be editing it out because I've been saying it for so long. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.